400 arrests. That's the tally so far for the last 24 hours as police stage an intense crackdown on Occupy Wall Street protests erupting in America. The latest demonstrations spanning the entire country come as the movement marks its 2-month anniversary. With more than 30,000 protesters in New York alone, the day has become a testament to the staying power of the Occupy Wall Street ideas. The movement is, however, facing a synchronized clampdown by local governments and law enforcement agencies. Our correspondent Lucy Kafanoff brings us the latest from the Big Apple.
We're standing on the Brooklyn Bridge in New York City where the Occupy Wall Street protesters are marching on. This is the final and the biggest round of activities that have taken place on November 17th. Now again, November 17th is the 2-month anniversary of the Occupy Wall Street movement that began right here in New York on September 17th. What began as a small occupation of a small park near Wall Street had turned into a nationwide movement that has in fact spread to countries all across the world, from Toronto to Tokyo. Cities all across the globe have embraced in the message that these protesters are putting out, which is the frustration with corporate greed, the control of the political system as they perceive by the few corporate elites, by those with the means of the wealth, and the inability for the average American to essentially put food on the table, to live the middle-class lifestyle. These are some of the demands, some of the frustrations that the protesters here have expressed, and it is what we are seeing spreading across the country. Now, the events in New York City have been tense, filled with extreme tension, many clashes with police officers and the protesters following the raid that took place not only in New York City, but across the country in many of the occupations, from Oakland to Denver to Portland to all kinds of other cities. What we saw this in New York City in the morning was countless protesters, hundreds in fact, take to the streets near Wall Street in an attempt to disrupt businesses there, to disrupt the operation of the financial sector, and they certainly succeeded in doing so. Hundreds of protesters had sat in different corners, blocked off intersections, linked arms to form human chains to get their message heard, to get themselves noticed. They were met with an extremely intense police response. We witnessed many arrests. In fact, 200 or so protesters have been arrested, although we expect the numbers will be much higher once all of the information comes to bear. We had seen, unfortunately, a lot of instances of seemingly unprovoked brutality by the police force. In many cases, the protesters were simply sitting, perhaps standing in an area that's a little bit too close to the sidewalk. They were met with brute force by the police department. Many of them slammed down onto the ground, handcuffed, and physically dragged away. The Occupy Wall Street movement was really thrust into the spotlight following the mass arrests that were witnessed on this very bridge, the Brooklyn Bridge, several weeks ago, where 700 protesters were kettled by police netting and arrested en masse. For the most part, whether or not their message will actually result in policy changes remains to be seen, but they're certainly being heard by the press, by the residents, and by countless Americans all across the United States. Reporting for RT on the Brooklyn Bridge, I'm Lucy Kafanoff.